Hi friends, I'm Anna Helman. Thanks for being here. I have a question for you. Do you have white ink in your ink collection? Many of you do, I'm sure. I bet there are quite a few of you who don't have white ink in your collection. When I'm doing my stamping, a lot of my projects I've shared recently, I have not used my white ink, but it is such a neat color to add to your collection, and there's a lot of things you can do with it that are different from the other colors. In this video, I want to share several different techniques that you can use with white ink on your projects. So let's take a look at them. The stamping I'll be doing was done with this set right here. This is a fun new set coming May 2nd, along with the neat new colors I'll be sharing and all kinds of other new products. Now this is your last chance to shop that discount sale for all of our retiring items, so keep that in mind. So let's take a look at some ways to use this white ink. And I'm going to start with a piece of cardstock. This is a new color called Pebbled Path. Here is my white ink pad. Now I will mention this, if you order this white ink pad, it comes uninked and it comes with a bottle that you will ink it with. And I've had questions about this ink is very thick. Now it needs to be thick so that this shows up as white on our cardstock. If it wasn't thick, it probably wouldn't really show up on here. So I have a tip video where I suggested some ways to make it easier to ink this because it's thick. It's a little bit hard to get out, but you could just put this in some warm water for a little bit. If you need to, you can poke a bigger hole in the top to let more ink out at one time. Just put it on the surface and then you can smooth it back and forth with a plastic spoon or a store membership card, kind of like a credit card. So let's start doing some stamping with this. I am going to use this small daisy stamp first, and I want to stamp it several times to create a little bit like a border going down the side. Now I'm gonna leave that spot open right there. I'll stamp this one here. Let's stamp one more here. And I'm going to leave an opening down here. Now the reason I'm leaving an opening is because I want to show you how it's going to look a little bit different if we stamp multiple times using a stamp positioning tool. So if you stamp multiple times in the same spot, it's going to get a little bit darker, a little bit less translucent. So maybe I should say brighter. It's going to be a brighter white because it will be less translucent. So I'll ink up here a couple of times. We'll stamp once. And let's do that again. Now, if you really want to get a solid bright white, what you may want to do is allow this to dry between coats. Because this ink is so thick, it does take a little bit to dry. Takes a little bit longer than other colors, so you can either set it aside and wait for it to dry, or you can use a heat tool to speed it along a little bit. Okay, so you can see that that's getting a little bit darker. Let's clean this off. Let's move it down. I'll do one more that way, and then we will move on to another technique. Going to sneak some paper in here to catch my extra ink off the edge. Now I lost my camera for a second, but here you can see what I did. So I stamped 3 times down here as well. So you can see that by stamping in the same place a few times, you get a little bit darker or brighter, more solid white. Now I will be finishing up all of these cards and showing you my finished cards projects at the end, but let's take a look at the other techniques with this white ink. So here I have already stamped several times in one spot using the large daisy stamp, and now what I want to do is stamp directly over this, but I'm going to stamp with a color. So typically if you stamp onto a color of cardstock, you're not going to get the most beautiful result. So I'm going to use a new color called Boho Blue, and just to give you a point of reference, here's what it looks like if I stamp that Boho Blue directly onto the mauve cardstock. Now I will ink up this large stamp and stamp right over that white flower that I had already prepared. And take a look at that. Look how much brighter that is. So now using this white ink, what you can do is you can stamp colors onto your colored cardstock and actually get a true color, true look to what that color is, instead of what we often get, something like a brown or a dark color that's not really what we're going for. Isn't that cool? I just love that. That is one of my favorite ways to use this white ink. So let's move on. I have a couple more techniques to show you. The next one I want to do is actually water painting with the white ink. So if you follow along, I would imagine you have seen me do some water painting before, where I use my water painter, pick up a little bit of ink onto a block, and then I add some water to it, mix it around, and we do some watercoloring. So what I'm doing, I'm squeezing, there's water in the barrel here. Squeeze a little bit, get some of that water out on the block. So let's mix this around a little bit. And what I like to do when I water paint, I like some areas that I only have a little bit of color mixed into, and then I like some areas that I have a lot of color mixed into. So I'm going to start with this one down here that just has a little bit of that white ink and start painting. And what I like to do when I'm using these water painters is I like to keep coloring until a lot of that color has actually come off. And that way I get the faded effect. So I get some color variation in there. When I do this, I really like that color variation. I think it makes it look more realistic, gives it some more interest. Now I may need to come back in and put some more there, but here I'll pick up some more and it gets a lot. I don't know whether to say darker or brighter. I guess I should say bright. I want to say darker, but I guess brighter would be correct. So it gets a lot brighter white there when I pick up some more of that ink. Keep coloring. I think I need a little bit more here, and actually I like the way that one looks, so I'm going to move on. Try to blend that little spot out that I left right there. So this is really fun, and once I get done, a lot of times with my water painting like this, I'll go back and I will add areas of more solid color, darker color, or in this case it will be brighter white. So finish up these last couple of petals. I will do the smaller flower before I finish up my cards and show you the results at the end, but let's go back and let's add some highlights. So we can blend these in if we want to, but with the white, I think it's kind of neat not to, and just leave some of those streaks. So if I add more water, if there's not much water, it's going to leave pretty good, pretty obvious streaks. If I want to blend those in some, just add a little bit more water by squeezing on the tip here, and that will give me some more water so that I can blend it together. So as this dries, it's not quite as bright as it was when it was wet. So this is something that if you're going to try this out, you may want to play around with it, let it dry a little bit, and then see how it looks. See if you want to go ahead and add some more, or if you like the way it is. If you want more, you can always add more on top, of course. So that is a really fun way to use this white ink as well. Now I have two more. This one I have already prepared. I already did my stamping. I stamped the white ink on this new boho blue cardstock color. And what I want to do now is a little bit of coloring over the top. So let's do what I did here a second ago, just to give you an idea of what these colors will look like if I color straight onto the boho blue cardstock. We do get some color. Well, let's see what it looks like if we color over the white. So this is my crushed curry watercolor pencil. I like these watercolor pencils because I can use them just as pencils, or I can actually add in some water and do some really cool techniques with them. I have a video I did on these that I can link you to as well. So just like when I was using the water painters, when I am coloring, what I like to do is start pretty light, and then I can always go back and add more color if I want to. And I will add more color, but I'll start light just to give myself a starting point. I like when I'm coloring, I like to be using, I don't really like having a sharp point on my pencil. I like having it a little bit dull because it allows it to, the pencil to move a little bit easier, and I don't get those dark areas of color that way. I feel like I just have more control over it. And I like to color using a swirling pattern, that way I don't get streaks. So we'll do that much for now. And now I'll go back and start adding in a little bit more color. So a lot of times with stamp sets, you can use what we call cheat lines. So if you see the open spots, the open areas that didn't stamp, depends on the stamp set. With this one, I believe those are the areas that there will be darker, that would have shadows on them. Now on a lot of stamps, the lines are what you can actually follow, the lines that do stamp. But just take a look at the set that you're using and make a judgment call. What I found is that no matter where I add shading, it usually looks nice, even if it's, I'm sure it is not where it's supposed to be a lot of times, but just adding some of that color variation really makes it look nice. Okay, so here, see the difference in that color. Let's add a little bit of green. Let's color on this leaf right here, and then we'll look at those colors up a little bit closer. But again, this gives you the ability to stamp with beautiful colors right on top of that colored cardstock, which you wouldn't normally be able to do. Okay, last technique here, and then I'm excited to finish these cards up and come back and show them to you. This is a new color called Wild Wheat. I stamped the daisy on top of it 3 times already. And now I am going to bring it in. We will stamp another color over top, but this one is going to be a little bit different from the sample we already did. With this one, we stamped directly on top because I was using my stamp positioner. So that way I was able to get the placement perfect. If you don't have one of those tools, or if you want a little bit different look, let's try that now, and we will be doing this by hand. So I am going to use, what color should I use? Friends? Should I use boho blue? Let's do some copper clay. Let's get a little wild and switch it up a little bit here. So I use some copper clay. Now I want to line up pretty close to where the stamp lines up with my first one, but I don't want it to be exact because I want that little shadow to hang out. Can you see that? I think this is a really fun effect. While I really like this look and the ability to stamp that color on the cardstock and make it look, you know, make it actually a pretty color, not one that has been turned brown by blending with the cardstock. While I like that look, I think this is a really cool technique as well that just gives a little bit different look. So we'll stamp this last one. Take a look at it up a little bit closer. See that? Isn't that fun? I just love that little white shadow, and I think it adds a lot to the project. So let me finish up these cards. I'll be right back to share them with you. So I finished up the cards, and while I was away, my helper found me. You want to say hi?
Hi.
It's been a little while since she's been here to help, but you helped finish these, right? What did you do?
I put the gems on that one and that one.
She put some of the gems on. She helped me finish these up. So let's take a look at these, and I'll just explain what I did. This one I finished coloring the rest of the flowers, of course, with those pencils, and just stamped the greeting, added some gems and the little bow, and put it on a boho blue base, which I thought looked nice. I'm getting tapped. Do you have something to say?
Can I tell them what colors there are?
You want to talk about the colors?
Yeah.
Do you already know all the colors? I don't even
so.
know all the colors yet. So why don't we, well, let's talk about this one. Do you know what colors are on this one?
I don't know what the yellow is, but I think the pinkish is Moody Mauve, and then the background is Copper Clay.
This is actually Copper Clay as well.
Oh.
It looks a little bit different when I stamped over the white.
Yeah.
And this is Wild Wheat. So I stamped the greeting. This one, I just love this. I just left it really simple, added that matte behind. And I think that is just a really nice, simple card to create. This one, I stamped the leaves and the stem and the center the same way. I stamped first with the white, and then I stamped again with my Stamparatus with the color over top. And then I decided to emboss this and add the die cuts, and you put the gems on, right?
Yeah, and then that's boho blue.
Boho blue,
and then that's is it lolly or lemon lime?
that was actually Daffodil Delight, but Lemon Lolly's the new one, right? So what's this color?
Copper Clay.
Copper Clay, one of the new colors. This one, just to make it a little bit different, I cut a 1/2-inch strip off of each side. I mounted the side strips straight to the card, and then I popped up that piece in the middle and added the little embellishments. Do you know this color?
Pebbled Path.
Pebbled Path is a really nice color that I think I'm going to be using a lot. I added this die cut over the top. I embossed it to give it a little bit of interest and just kept the greeting really basic. And I believe that's all of them, right? So you have anything to add? Not right now.
Buy more Stamparatuses from you.
What? Okay, so thanks for the Stamparatus. Yes, I just made another Stamparatus video that we're going to talk about the Stamparatus again. So thanks so much for watching along. If you're interested in any of these products, they'll be available May 2nd. I will have links in the video description below at that time. I really appreciate those of you who order from me and watch along with my videos. Hope you have a blessed day and that you'll be back again when I'll be here helping you to hand make with love.